Welcome to this very special episode of TFL's Leaderboard, Hot or Not. And as always, I have
Paul,
our expert race car driver. And today, Paul, it was exciting at the track because this was just an all-out cage match, right? We've got Mustang versus Camaro. How American does it get?
I know you sent me an email saying, guess what I got this week?
Yeah.
And I was so excited. I'm like, yes, I can't wait to drive both of these cars. So.
And usually it's hard for us to get cars that compete directly, but these two compete. Not only do we have a Mustang versus a Camaro, but we have the SS versus the GT, the two V8 monsters.
Yeah, and the two that are pretty affordable as well that most people will buy. I think often you compare, the very top of the line ones, which very few people actually get those cars. These are the cars that people actually purchase.
Yeah, and for the first time for all of our European viewers, the Mustang is actually readily available in Europe now, and it's the hottest selling sports car in Germany. Who would have thunk?
Though you would ever say those words, that you would ever utter those words.
The home of Porsche and BMW and Mercedes and Audi. We keep going, right?
Yeah, keep going, and there it is right there, Mustang.
And at some point, both Chevy and Ford decided that they were going to take it very seriously and take it on the track and turn the cars into all-out sports cars. And I think there's nothing that says that more than the fact that this vehicle behind me, which forever had basically a live axle, now has independent rear suspension.
Yeah, and the platforms that these cars are sharing are just the technology in the cars. They're not very expensive cars overall. The interiors look pretty cheap, but they're putting more and more money into the handling of these cars. So more of a proportion of it.
The question we're going to try to answer on this show is which one has done a better job. And these two companies and the two guys behind these cars are fiercely competitive. So today's episode, I think, is going to be very eye-opening to them because it was quite astounding, the results. So let's start with the 0 to 60.
Okay.
And let's go to the Mustang first. The Mustang's Coyote 5-liter is a little down on power compared to the Camaro. It puts out 435 horsepower and 400 pound-foot of torque. And of course, it's all fed through a 6-speed manual transmission. Now the Mustang has line lock, and get this, it has launch control even with a manual. And of course, just like the Camaro, it feeds all that power through the rear wheels.
All right, we're gonna do a 0 to 60 run in the Mustang and see how it copes up here at a mile above sea level. Launch control set at 4,300 RPMs. All right, 5.73 seconds, so pretty decent run, and I upped the RPMs on the launch control there because it was kind of bogging right when I got the clutch out just a little bit, and that really helped. It stayed out of that bog this time, and it just kind of kept right on pulling. So that was a good launch.
So how did it feel to launch the Mustang?
The Mustang, first of all, had launch control. So normally I'm a person, as everyone knows, I turn off a lot of systems, but I'm like, let me try it. And it was pretty cool because it was adjustable. You could adjust it in 100 RPM increments. And so I actually ended up at 4,300 RPM as a launch point, and basically just floor it and let the clutch out, and it moderates the throttle to kind of manage the wheel spin. And the car's pretty torquey, so it does want to spin the tires quite a bit. And then it's just off you go, second gear, and you can hit 60 right at the top of second.
Now, interestingly, this is down about 20 horsepower to that, and it's down actually 55 pound-foot of torque to the Camaro. So launch and 0 to 60 is all about torque. So how did it go in the Camaro? Let's cut to that video right now. Under the hood of the Camaro is a very throaty 6.2 liter V8, the LT1, which is basically the same engine that's in the Corvette. It puts out 455 horsepower and 455 pound-foot of torque. In this case, through a 6-speed manual transmission with not paddle shifters, but rev matching. I'm sure Paul's probably not going to use that around the track. He can do it manually the old-fashioned way. And of course, as it should, it powers the rear wheels.
All right, here we go on the Camaro, 0 to 60 run. All right, there we go. 5.41 seconds to 60. And fairly good launch, a little bit of wheel spin, but probably maybe just a tenth or so worth of wheel spin. So I think that's about it.
All right, so how did the Camaro feel launching?
Took a ton of RPM. And that was weird because it's got a bigger engine and it's got more torque. So you would think logically that you'd be able to roll this thing off at 1,500 RPMs and light the tires very gently and roll right through a quick 0 to 60. But this actually took like a 5,000-6,000 RPM launch to not bog. And that was really surprising. So the power band is really shifted up in the Camaro versus the Mustang. 0 to 60 was faster. It is a faster car. That horsepower and that torque does get you a quicker time, but it was really surprising how it got you the quicker time.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, from just standing outside and watching you, was how good that sounds. That sounds awesome. It's got a 6.2, basically the LT1 out of the Corvette.
Yeah.
That has a 5-liter Coyote engine, and it's a little bit more muffled. It's a little bit more sedate. I interrupt this video from a word from our sponsor. That's right, TFL, and I've got some great news for you guys. We've got a brand new YouTube channel called TFL Now that you can visit by clicking on me or clicking above. And on TFL Now, we're doing live video, we're doing behind the scenes, and we're doing drag races like this one, the Camaro SS versus the Mustang GT. How cool is that? Which one is faster? Well, there's only one way to find out. You're going to have to subscribe to TFL Now and get all of the behind the scenes that's happening right here at TFL HQ. Please subscribe, and thanks for watching, and thanks for your support. Now, I did get to drive both of these cars, and I got to tell you, just from a tall driver perspective, this is a lot more livable than that. Just because there's a lot more room in this one. This one you sit down low in, right, and you feel like you're in a cave and you're looking out of like a submarine, right? And this one, it's a more traditional car. So actually in this car, well, let me just cut to that video and you can see me driving both of these cars, and you can see the difference between which one is more of a cruiser and which one is more of a, well, a traditional kind of low-slung, almost hot roddy. And you can tell immediately that this is a much smaller car than the Mustang. And that's the sense I get. You're more confined. And if you like that, that's pretty cool because everything is kind of much lower, much smaller, much tighter. And this is the kind of car that you kind of want to drive with the window down and your arm up and your head back. And of course, your right hand on the 6-speed shifter. And what a good shifter this is. Short throws, precise, easy to find the right gear. It hooks up just at the right place when you let off the clutch. Not too early, not too late. It's a car that both a novice and somebody like Paul can get behind the wheel and feel comfortable and drive easily. And if you're looking for something that just likes to cruise, this is actually a very sorted car. Is it as sorted as a Mustang on the road? I think it's not quite as comfortable as a Mustang. The Mustang is a little bit more softly sprung, a little bit easier on the old butt, more friendly for kind of a cruise night at your local neighborhood main street. And this car is a lot roomier than the Camaro, so take that with anything I say when it comes to this drive in the Mustang, because I just fit a lot better in this car and I feel a lot more comfortable in this car. There's shoulder room, there's headroom, and actually, unlike the Camaro, I can actually see where the stoplight is. In the Camaro, if I pull up to a stoplight, I can't see the stoplight because it's so low. Let's talk about shifting. How does this Mustang shift compared to the Camaro? You know what? It's very similar. I think you can't even squeeze a penny in between the two in terms of kind of how dynamically they work. They're both really good, really short throw, really well executed and engineered, and really well made it to the engine. Now, of course, this has a smaller engine, a little bit less torque, a little bit less horsepower, but the torque seems to come on just a little quicker. Also, this Mustang, and you can tell when you're driving it, is heavier, it's floatier, it's not quite as buttoned down, the chassis isn't quite as tuned in, It's not quite as razor sharp when it comes to the steering, but for a typical American road, which is bad and rutted out and not particularly smooth, this is probably the better chassis. So if you're looking at a car that you're going to take on the track, hell yeah, go for the Camaro. But if you're looking for a car that you're going to drive to work every day and you want it to be a little bit more streetable, a little bit more compliant, a little bit more, well, softer, then definitely look at the Mustang. How about you? You're a little bit shorter. Which one is it better to drive?
So this is kind of funny because you could probably cut to this video as well, but me driving the Camaro around the track and actually doing this, looking over the dash. I couldn't see over the dash in that car, so I was actually stretching up in the seat. We've got those hills on the track, and I couldn't see out of the car. So yeah, it's funny where you're saying it's not good for really tall people, not really good for really short people either. So I guess if you're 5'9" to 6 foot, it probably works pretty well. But if you're below that or above it, not great.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the Camaro, a car where you drive with your hand up here.
Yeah, that's why it looks so cool like from the outside.
Yeah, you look cool. You look badass. You've got that little slit.
Yeah,
that, just see your eyes. But yeah, it's from a driver standpoint, it's cool, but it's not really driver friendly.
Not ideal, yeah.
No, so let's talk about why these two cars match up. So there are 3 engines that are available in these vehicles right now. There is a 4-cylinder turbo, there is a 6-cylinder, and then there's the 8-cylinder. And so these are both the 8-cylinders. Now there's also a whole other kind of performance variation on these.
Yes.
So the Mustang, of course, has the GT350, the Shelby. The Camaro, they're coming out with the ZL1, but that one's not out yet. There's also a track pack you can get for this. There's also a track version of that, but none of those are here. What we have are the 2 identical cars in terms of the way that they match up. So I said that because we're setting up the track battle, and it was a track battle. So let's cut to the Mustang first. Let's go to the Mustang and let's see how that went around the track. Now there is a difference in the rubber of these 2 pony cars, or are they muscle cars, or are they sports cars? Well, we'll find out where. This Mustang has Pirelli P0s with 255/40 ZR19s, and they're not offset, which means that they're the same size in the front and in the back. These are aggressive all-season tires.
All right, we're gonna try the Mustang GT California Special, see what she's got. And you can use the launch control, 4,300 RPM launch. This car is all over the place. I mean, it's okay, it's just got no grip. And it's really soft. I'm trying to be as smooth as I can with it, but a little bit snappy through the S's there. You can feel that it's an all-season tire. Just wants to kind of drift, doesn't want to go.
Hey Paul, so that looked floppy and messy and shaky and loose.
That was all me.
Tell me about it. What's the car like?
It's soft. It's just, it's not it feels like, it's a California cruising down Santa Monica Boulevard edition and not a ripping around a track edition.
Yeah, and the time shows it. It's 1:08:81.
Yeah.
All right, Paul. So I watched you go around the track in the Mustang, and you were working hard.
I was really, really surprised, and I always talk about how the car feels tipping it into the first corner, and the Mustang was just like syrup. It was really soft and really rolly and not much grip. The car's balance was quite good. But as far as the actual performance of the car, it was pretty underwhelming as far as the handling goes.
Yeah, and a 1:08 leaderboard time, yeah, it's not great, dude.
No, it's not like I was, babying it around the track. I was trying to get everything I could out of it, but it just tended to be with that softness. I'd get understeer, and so I could trail brake it and get the rear end out and have it pretty well balanced everywhere, but it just wasn't that fast. And that comes down to the softness of the suspension, and also the Mustang happens to come on a high performance all-season tire, not a summer tire.
Yeah, and those tires on the Mustang, that has about almost 9,000 miles. That has 500 miles, and those are pretty used up. So that could have something to do with it. But nevertheless, even if you take that out, well, let's just cut to the chase. So let's just go to the video of you in the Camaro. Looking at the tread, you can tell immediately this is a much more aggressive, stickier tire. It's an Eagle F1 summer tire. It's going to be a little bit faster around the track. It's also offset, which means that the rear tires and wheels are wider than these fronts.
After just getting out of the Mustang, getting in this, the level of grip this thing has, it's just on another planet compared to the Mustang. It's amazing. Not much torque coming off the corners though, but I'm just kind of carving it around. Wow, what a different car. But no torque. That's something, you gotta keep this engine on oil. Not much brake bite either, which I was complaining about in the Mustang. A little bit of understeer there. And then not quite enough torque to kind of carry it through the corner.
Wow, 4 seconds. That is an eternity. So, I'm not going to tell you, how did that feel?
Miles better.
Yeah, it was miles better, dude. I mean, literally miles better. A 104.89.
Almost 4 seconds faster.
Yeah.
As soon as you turn in, I always love that sensation of never driving a car around a track.
Yeah.
And I go for this hot lap, and I turn it into the first turn, and it's always like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And this one, you're just like, oh!
Wow, 4 seconds faster. That is incredible.
Yeah, and you look at these cars from the outside, you look at them on paper, and you're like, boy, they stack up. This is going to be, we're going to be splitting hairs with tenths here. And again, tip the Camaro into the first corner, and you're just like night and day. The amount of grip, the amount of poise, the amount of everything. The one thing that the Camaro lacked was what I mentioned on the 0 to 60, not a lot of torque coming off the corners. So here's the funny thing, it's got more horsepower, but you drove it like a car with less horsepower, where I tried to really rail the corners and maximize corner speed because it had a great chassis. And with the Mustang, it was more I had to get it straightened out to get the power down because it wanted to kick the rear end out all the time because it has a lot more torque down low than the Camaro does. So there were a lot of kind of surprises, I would say, driving these cars. But overall, the Camaro, hands down the better track car. The Mustang felt like it didn't belong out there, and the Camaro felt like it was bred to be out there.
Now, this is not going to sit well with Ford because, I could see them saying, well, a 1 second time, but 4 seconds is on a 1 minute plus track is just an eternity. And so it really has to do with the fact that you've got this, I think, spectrum, right, where you've got, let's say you've got the muscle car on this side and you've got an all-out sports car on this side.
Yes.
And now we basically have two cars. So we have the Camaro, which is the sports car.
Yeah.
We've got the Mustang, which is kind of in the middle, right? At least this one.
Yeah.
Halfway to sports car. And then we've got the Challenger, which is a complete and utter muscle car.
Yes.
We don't have that one here, but between these two, it seems like that one is bred for the track, this one is bred for the road.
Yeah, and of course there's variants of this that are more track variants, but I think the Camaro to me feels like just a generation, a league ahead. It's like, this car's kind of the Mustang's aiming at the Camaro, and the Camaro's aiming at the M3, and pretty much nailing it. So this handling, out of the Camaro feels more like on par of what you would expect from, a really good German sports sedan. This feels like a really good, the Mustang feels like a really good muscle car. This is in a different league altogether.
All right, it's that time in the show when we find out, is it hot or not? So let's start with the Camaro. Is it hot or not?
Very hot.
Or we've got one hot for the Camaro, and how about for the Mustang?
Not on my book, on the track, nope.
All right, I'm gonna give it a hot as well because I just love that, especially that California Special that's behind us. It is so cool. So what we have basically are two cars that directly compete, but one is more street worthy and one is more track worthy. So here's the question, right? They're both about the same, with the 40 to 45 range. If it were your money, which one would you buy?
Oh, Camaro all day, all night long.
And I'd get the Mustang.
Yeah. Hot or not? No, just kidding.
Oh, come on, dude. That is not fair. That is not fair. You know, I would get the car where I spend most of my time driving it.
I agree.
All right, guys, as you know, this has been another episode of TFL's Hot or Not. Please come back every week when we decide if 2 American cars or 2 Japanese cars or 2 any cars are hot or not. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Ciao. Welcome to another episode of TFL's Leaderboard, Hot or Not. And I'm Roman Mike, and I'm an automotive journalist.
And I'm Paul Gerard, and I'm a professional driver.
That's right, and today we've got something really special. Sometimes we've got brand new cars, and sometimes we've got cars that are, well, interesting. How would you describe the Velocity, Paul?
Well, the name, I think, says it all, doesn't it?
Yes, indeed.
So it's you know, it's kind of a car, and actually in the name is also exo, so it's like an exoskeleton. So it's basically a tube chassis car where you're hanging on components from production cars, whether it be suspension or engine and drivetrain, and creating something. What you end up with, of course, is when you're shedding the chassis, you get something really light. So you get a crazy power to weight ratio.
Yeah, it's very...